XAI recently released Grok 4.6, and the data shows it has officially caught up to the industry leaders. In head-to-head evaluations, the model scores directly alongside ChatGPT 5.6 Sol and Claude Fable 5 in overall intelligence and reasoning capability. When put through complex development tests, like internet scavenger hunts for code or multi-file debugging exercises, Grok completes the tasks in significantly less time than OpenAI's top models. It executes these tasks at a massive discount. Depending on the exact workload, Grok operates for anywhere from a third to a tenth of the price of its direct competitors. If a model can produce the same quality of output, run faster, and cost a fraction of the price, you would expect an immediate industry-wide migration. But that hasn't happened. The issue lies in the interface. While the core AI engine is highly capable, the native Grok website is essentially a stripped-down shell. It lacks the tools and features necessary to actually put that intelligence to work. ChatGPT and Claude rely on robust desktop applications to turn raw model intelligence into a usable ecosystem. This radar chart compares Grok 4.6 against GPT 5.6 and Fable 5. Grok extends to match the others perfectly on axes for intelligence and speed. But looking at the axes for native app UX, it falls severely behind, lacking a comprehensive desktop environment. To actually access Grok's high-performance tier, you have to stop using its native website. You need to extract the raw model via API and pipe it directly into specialized third-party software. By routing Grok through 3 specific setups, Cursor for software development, Hermes Agent for autonomous tasks, and X-Data pipelines for market research, you can bypass its native limitations and build an efficient workflow. For software developers generating thousands of lines of code, the heavy reliance on models like Fable 5 or GPT 5.6 quickly becomes a financial bottleneck. High-volume programming, or vibe coding, burns through API budgets and strict usage caps fast. We can see how the first workflow solves this by looking at this feature scorecard. Under the first column for vibe coding via Cursor, we see checks for code generation and bug fixing, along with support for a 1 million token context window. However, the box for general-purpose UX is crossed out. By connecting the Grok 4.6 API directly into the Cursor IDE backend, developers get top-tier code generation while barely making a dent in their API usage limits. That massive 1 million token context window allows engineers to feed entire codebases and extensive documentation into a single prompt without the system crashing or forgetting instructions. There is a distinct trade-off. Cursor is an environment built strictly for software development. You lose the intuitive voice modes and native browser integrations that come standard in the ChatGPT desktop app. If your primary goal is pure software development, the drastic reduction in API costs and the sheer speed of generating code make the loss of a generalized AI interface entirely worth it. For complex automation, models like Claude often hit a wall due to strict safety guardrails that block standard web scraping and data gathering. Grok, by design, operates with a much more permissive and open architecture. Moving to the second column on our feature scorecard, we look at the Hermes Agent integration. Here, we see checks for gated X-Data access, high-quality text-to-speech, and video generation, but setup simplicity is crossed out. By authorizing a Super Grok subscription via OAuth inside the Hermes Agent, you give the system native access to the X platform. Instead of getting blocked by anti-scraping measures, your agent can directly read, parse, and summarize live X posts. This environment provides direct access to specialized multimodal tools, including high-quality text-to-speech and the Grok Imagine video generator. The barrier to entry here is high. Utilizing Hermes requires comfort with command-line interfaces and manually configuring third-party tool providers. For power users, the technical friction of the setup process is the trade-off for gaining persistent memory and direct access to gated social data. When it comes to market research and SEO, traditional keyword tools share a fatal flaw. The search volume data they provide is typically weeks or even months out of date. Looking at the final column on our scorecard for real-time SEO, we have checks for live data and cross-platform creation, while automated fact-checking is clearly crossed out. Using tools like Grokbot to query live conversations directly on X allows marketers to spot trends exactly as they happen. They can then use the model's high context window to instantly draft cross-platform comparison content around those fresh topics. By pairing this content generation with fast indexing tools, creators force search engines to recognize their new pages immediately, often securing first-page rankings within 24 hours. This creates a secondary advantage. Because Grok itself acts as an AI search engine that constantly reads the live web, it quickly discovers these newly published pages and begins pulling them into its own answers as cited sources. Because Grok indexes the live web so aggressively, it operates with almost zero delay between a claim being posted and it being processed as information. This makes the model highly susceptible to repeating rapid misinformation. Grok offers marketers an undeniable speed advantage for capturing new trends, but it absolutely requires strict human-in-the-loop quality control before anything goes live. Grok 4.6 currently dominates the market in terms of cost-to-performance ratio, but it is a modular engine requiring assembly, not a finished vehicle ready to drive off the lot. This viewer decision flowchart maps out how to pair the model with your specific needs. It asks, what is your primary bottleneck? First, if you're a developer dealing with high-volume coding and API costs, your best move is to route Grok directly into Cursor. Second, if your work relies on autonomous agents parsing gated social data, you should authorize Grok within the Hermes CLI. Finally, if you need general strategy and an intuitive desktop experience, avoid the friction and stick with Fable 5 or GPT 5.6. If you evaluate Grok strictly by logging into its default web interface, you will be entirely blind to its actual utility in the professional market. The actual utility of Grok 4.6 depends on the specialized third-party environments you choose to plug it into.